Sir Jim Ratcliffe has said enough is enough and wants to change manager. Thomas Tuchel is seen as the ideal candidate by Ineos. Injury news, Manchester United target more young players, and a new right back is linked. This plus all the latest Manchester United news and transfer news that will keep you right up to date with everything. Welcome to Man United Review. My name's Jamie. Before we get into it, please smash a like on the video. And let's jump straight into it. So there's been a few more interesting updates over the last 24 hours regarding the manager situation. As you can imagine, that's the kind of main talk of the town. So we'll run through that, and then at the end, there's a couple of transfer stories and a few other bits and pieces I'm going to run through with you. So let's start with Melissa Reddy's and the Ten Hag stuff. So Manchester United refused to panic and will be measured when deciding what to do at the executive committee meeting. And then Rob Dawson, ESPN, said the following: Erik Ten Hag spoke to United's leadership team following the game at Villa Park and was not given an indication that his job is under immediate threat, leading him to believe he is safe for now. Erik Ten Hag's future remains in the balance ahead of a scheduled executive meeting this week, although Ten Hag believes he retains the faith of the club's bosses heading into the international break. Now, Rob Dawson's not the first person to say or make comment around Erik Ten Hag and this conversation, him going on holiday. James Ducker from The Telegraph, good source, said Erik Ten Hag believes that he has the club's backing as the board prepares to meet in London. He has gone on a short holiday and he expects that he will be in charge when the team resumes. So then we had Jamie Jackson, again, another credible source, saying Erik Ten Hag's future at Manchester United will be decided at an executive summit tomorrow. That's today. Ruud van Nistelrooy is favoured as a caretaker replacement should a change be made. And then the Mirror, who are quite credible when it comes to United, saying that Erik Ten Hag's fate will be decided on Tuesday when Manchester United's hierarchy meet for crunch talks, with Thomas Tuchel the new favourite to succeed him. I've got some Tuchel news, so I'll go bring you in a second. So, you know, it's one of these at the moment, right? It's a case of who do you believe, because we've got credible sources saying one thing, credible sources saying another thing. The more credible ones, like Romano and Ornstein, have kind of said that we're not talking to other managers, but they didn't necessarily say that we're not looking to remove Ten Hag. Just because of the fact we're not talking to managers doesn't necessarily mean that he's safe. And then we've got all other credible sources saying that everything's going to be discussed in today's meeting. But then we've had sources saying that they had a meeting with Ten Hag yesterday. So it's so up in the air. The kind of talk of the narrative going around at the moment is that there's going to be a crunch meeting today, and that could decide Erik Ten Hag's fate. But I've got to be honest, I have my reservations around that, because we've heard that so many times. And with there being so many conflicting stories, you know, we're just going to have to wait and see what happens with the situation, whether we do hear any news later on today or later on this week. You know, I don't think there's going to be this massive big announcement today anyway, that's for sure. But we're just going to need to keep an eye on it for you. But again, it's a really odd situation, as I mentioned, because we've got sources saying different things. But ultimately, the facts are there's a meeting today with all the hierarchy. No doubt the manager situation is going to be discussed in that meeting. It has to be because of the start of the season that we've had. And then we're just going to need a wait and see what kind of happens as a result of that meeting. But I'll bring you any updates. So if you're not already, make sure you subscribe. But then we've had also another story coming from Steve Rawlinson, said Sir Jim Ratcliffe is at Old Trafford today. This was yesterday for various meetings, followed by a routine monthly executive committee meeting in London tomorrow. Sam C, though, who is a good source, said that Sir Jim Ratcliffe thinks enough is enough and wants to change, but no final decision has taken yet. And that's one of the first kind of stories we've heard around, you know, Sir Jim Ratcliffe kind of saying anything regarding the manager situation. He didn't kind of get involved with the interview that he did last week. Kind of say he's going to leave it to the decision makers. But if that's true, and Sam C is a good source, you know, is there going to be something going on today? And I mentioned this in a video I did last week, that you've got to remember it's Ineos and Sir Jim's name that's being dragged through the mud. So the kind of people like Dan Ashworth and Jason Wilcox and Brother, all that might want to give Ten Hag some time, but ultimately if it is Ineos and Sir Jim Ratcliffe who are kind of getting it in the neck, eventually there may come a time where he's had enough, and it might be at that point now with Sir Jim. But again, we're going to need to keep an eye on it and wait and see what kind of happens. In terms of replacements, as mentioned in one of the articles earlier, Thomas Tuchel's now the favourite, so what's been said around him? So Thomas Tuchel is still appreciated by Ineos after the meeting in the summer, but there is no contact with him or any other manager. United respect Erik ten Hag and his future is still being discussed internally. For sure, Thomas Tuchel remains a candidate for Manchester United. That came from Fabrizio Romano, pretty much confirming that, it's still up in the air, still being discussed, but also Thomas Tuchel would be a candidate for the job. Sam C, again, good source, said that some within the leadership team think Thomas Tuchel could be the man to replace Erik ten Hag if he's sacked. However, it's understood that Tuchel's side are pushing the fact that he could replace current manager Erik ten Hag at the moment. So Sam kind of effectively saying that a lot of the stories seem to be coming from Thomas Tuchel's side, which is interesting. And then Sam also said Michael Carrick would be open to a return to the club in some sort of capacity. He has been discussed as a potential assistant or caretaker if the club wanted to have someone in charge until the end of the season. What do you think about that? Would you take Michael Carrick back as an interim? Maybe that's what it sounds like. Sounds like Sam saying that effectively they bring Carrick back as some kind of assistant, maybe as Ruud van Nistelrooy's assistant possibly, or as like an interim coach with Van Nistelrooy as well. I actually thought Carrick did all right in the when he was interim manager. I thought we played some nice stuff. So that would be an interesting choice. But whether he's going to want to leave a permanent manager role to come in as an interim, who knows? But then he could look at the Ollie situation and say, well, it worked out all right for Ollie. He ended up getting the full-time gig. So, could be an interesting option there. Let me know what you think about that in the comments. So that was all the latest regarding the manager talk. So just to kind of summarize, there's a meeting today in London with all the kind of chief executives and the owners, Joe Glazer, Jim Ratcliffe, Dave Brailsford, all of those kind of characters. And then there's conflicting reports around the manager still, which kind of suggests that nobody really knows what is going on, whether that's because they're discussing it today, so actually so the decision actually hasn't been made yet, which could be true, or they're just keeping the cards very close to their chest. But I don't know whether we're going to get like an announcement or some kind of decision. I'd imagine something will leak out at some point in time, but whether that's whether it's going to be like breaking news or anything, we'll have to wait and see. But let me know what you think about the whole manager situation in the comments. So we've got that going on today. Thomas Tuchel remains a heavy name being linked. Michael Carrick's now been linked potentially as an interim or as coming in as an assistant coach, maybe for Ruud. And it looks like Ruud would be kind of picking up the mantle until a permanent manager could be funded if they don't go for Tuchel. So again, so many conflicting stories. It's difficult to kind of put it's kind of difficult to get behind one because they're all credible sources saying different things, which is really interesting. But let me know what you think in the comments. And let's move on to some other news. So there's been a few injury updates. So Alejandro Garnacho will be removed from the Argentina national team due to discomfort. Alejandro himself said, I had knee problems in the last 2 matches and I won't be able to be with the national team, but I hope to recover so I can be on the next date. Kobe Mainoo's also withdrawn from England duty as well. Mazraoui's been withdrawn from the national team as well, but apparently according to Rich Fay, Kobe Mainoo, Garnacho and Mazraoui could all still be available against Brentford. They withdrew from international duty as a precaution, which is good actually. Glad that we're finally not allowing players to go on international duty if they're carrying knocks, because look at what's happened with Luke Shaw and a few other players in the past where so it's good that the club have kind of decided, well, actually, no, you're not going because you're not fit enough to play, which is positive because those players can have a couple of weeks rest and hopefully be back in time for the Brentford game. And I'm going to go through this. I don't know if I brought you this before, but Chido Obi-Martin is officially signed for the club. That was the end of last week. He said himself, from a quote from himself, very happy to sign with this amazing club. Time to focus and achieve all my dreams. Thanks to everyone who has helped me get this far. So that's positive to finally get Chido Obi-Martin through the door as well. It'll be interesting to keep an eye on his development. Obviously, he'll come into the under-18s. potentially then play for the reserves, and who knows, maybe there would be some kind of pathway to the first team. But we're going to have to keep an eye on it, but massively exciting for Chido Martin. And then United are also continuing to look into bringing in more youth players. So Swansea City, youth starlets, Harlan Perry, who's 16, and Brogan Popham, 17, are attracting interest from both Manchester United and understood to have scheduled meetings with the teenage duos representatives. That came from the Mirror, not players that I've kind of followed or heard of. I think Popham's a midfielder, and I think Perry's a midfielder and Popham's a centre half. From the kind of brief research that I kind of looked into them as well. But again, both got good reputation. So is it United continuing with their scouting and their recruitment for bringing in all these kind of young talents as well, which I'm here for all day. I don't see an issue with that whatsoever. And then Man United have also been linked to Adam Wharton. So Manchester United are planning to push Christian Eriksen out as they make room for a stunning raid on Crystal Palace for Adam Wharton. Ratcliffe and sporting director Dan Ashworth have been clear they want to see the best British talent at United. And midfielder Wharton has caught the eye of recruiters at Old Trafford with his brilliant performances for Crystal Palace. I would say that came from Team Talk. Team Talk are a gossip outlet, so I would say at the moment take that with a pinch of salt. He is a player of interest though, because we were linked with him, I think even before he went to Crystal Palace. So he's definitely a player that's been on the scouting radar and stuff, but obviously we haven't signed him. I think he'll be massively expensive as well. Look at what they were asking for Gay in the summer from Newcastle. That wasn't going to be cheap for them if they managed to pull that deal off. So I think he's a very good player. Would actually be a good replacement for Casemiro Eriksen. So, one to keep an eye on. Did say in the report, though, that it's not for January. This is a summer deal because obviously the fees involved are going to be... He's going to cost you a bit, I think. And actually, the start of this season has not been that great for him as well with Palace, by all accounts. So, but definitely a name to keep an eye on. Would be a player of interest, homegrown, young, ball-playing midfielder, but not from the most credible source. So I would say at the moment, take it with a pinch of salt. And then the final story I've got for you is regarding Tiago Santos. So, Gimme Sport have said Manchester United are preparing to battle with Premier League rivals Aston Villa and Wolverhampton Wanderers for the signing of Tiago Santos. Now, Tiago Santos, this is a really interesting option. So, Rise of Star 11, who are really good when it comes to profiling young players and football young talents, said that Lille signed Tiago Santos, a 22-year-old right-back, in 23-24 for just 6.5 million euros. He is now one of the best right-backs in League One. And his profile and his, attributes are tackling, pace, technique, strong in the duels, dribbling, and ball control. Looks a really good player. Would definitely fit the mold of being young, up and coming. Be interesting that we're looking for a right back though when we massively need a left back. But then we've had reports that Diego Dallo might be of interest to Real Madrid. So would we potentially be looking at a replacement for him and cash in on Diego Dallo? That could be an option. Or could you play Mazraoui at left back? I know Ten Hag doesn't like doing that, but he is two-footed, so he could play on that left-hand side and then have Santos and Dallo on the right. I do think that we still need fullbacks because Dallo's obviously playing left back, or Dallo could continue at left back, for example, and then you could have Mazraoui and Santos playing at right back. So it does give you a bit of flexibility to get in a young right back. And the more players and the more competition we've got in certain areas, the better. So definitely an interesting option. Don't necessarily, because it came from Caught Offside, I forgot to mention this. It was actually from one of their more credible journalists as well, from Dean Jones, who's a little bit more credible. Not the most credible, though. So again, I would say take it with a pinch of salt at the moment, but we'll see how it develops. But would be a really interesting option and definitely a good profile of player. Looks really good. Go check him out and let me know what you think in the comments. So just to kind of summarize, today's been billed as like D-Day and Decision Day, and the decision's going to be made on Erik Ten Hag and stuff, which could be true. Obviously, I'm not in the board meeting, so I have no idea what they're going to discuss or whether there is going to be an announcement or anything along those lines. I'm tipping more towards the lines that potentially, I don't think nothing's going to... I've seen this before where the media drive up, you know, a frenzy and then nothing really happens off the back of that as well. But we might hear some updates later on today. Obviously, I'll keep you updated. So make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. But that's you all up to date with the latest Manchester United news and transfer news. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I enjoy reading them. Smash a like on the video on your way out. And I will see you in the next one.